Hey, my creative friends. It is time to talk about creativity. I'm Shannon from Shannon Studio, and I'm doing videos to talk about creativity. I feel like a lot of the decision making for making crafts or art or writing happen way before we sit down to do the work. And so we talk about creativity, what might help, some things to think about, in order to make that creative work happen. So today, let's see. The last couple of days, Joseph has been sick, so he's been home. That's our 6-year-old. And I had planned to go out to lunch with some of the wives that just got to Sweden. We've all just gotten to Sweden within the last few months. And so we were going to go to lunch, had to cancel that. What else? I was going to go to the Stockholm City Hall. You have to have a special time or set up a special group. You can't just go in there. So I had that set up but I had to cancel that. And there was a parents phonics meeting. I'm just looking at my calendar trying to think. There were several things, in the last couple of days that I had planned to do. And so it made me think of some of the things that we as moms face. And that it's a topic I've been frustrated with for a very, decades, a very long time. And that's the whole idea of being interrupted in creative work as a mom. And it was never sufficient to me, some of the things I read about how to deal with distractions or how to deal with interruptions, because it was all from the perspective of a male-oriented, life, and so I've thought about this, and I've seen what's worked, what hasn't worked. I'm going to read a quote from a book that just kind of gives that perspective, and I have it's from Creativity Flow. And he's talking about his own situation. It has been enormously helpful in my work because my wife sort of clears the way so I can get down to business and work without interruptions. And I'm like, what happens when you're the wife? But that's the common story from a male perspective in their creative life. A lot of times they just have to walk out the door, and everything's taken care of for them about food and clothing and laundry, dishes, the kids taken care of, and that's just not your and my life. It's just not. We have kids and we can't just walk out the door. So that's what we're going to talk about today. First off, it's mom life interruption. Now, there are purposeful interruptions to your work where you want to step back from your work, where you want to let the work percolate, so to speak, and that's a different kind of thing. I'm talking about the life, the day-to-day life. And so here's a couple more quotes. This one's from Creative Calling. Whether you realize it or not, life happens, interruptions and obstacles crop up. They do. And here's another one from Big Magic. I do not know of any artist who does not long for work without interruption. And I think that's amplified for women. Or if they do achieve it, the ideal is just temporary, and then life will inevitably rush back in. I think, yes, it's idyllic to think that you're going to have this blissful experience where life doesn't interrupt you. That's not the way it is, particularly if you're a mom with children. And I've been a mom with children for, now we're starting on 34 years. So you need to realize that in order for you to be able to be creative when you have children, you're going to have to be flexible. You're going to have to learn how to stop and start your work in order to be able to do the work, because sometimes you're just going to have 5, 10 minute, 15 minute pockets of time. And so you need to think of your creative work differently, because all of us would love to sit down, get in the flow every single time, and have that magical time happen. And that can still happen. It does still happen. But for the most part, if we're doing things day to day and you have kids at home during the day, you have a different lifestyle that requires different thinking. So one of the things is that this is a quote from Creative Culling, in practicing their craft, creators learn to be flexible and protective in all aspects of life. With their ingenuity and drive, it's impossible to keep them down. And I like the two things there that she or he pointed out: ingenuity and proactive. Those are two things that you as a mom with kids or other responsibilities, it could be work, you need to look at when you are realizing your time's going to come in smaller chunks. So what I mean by being ingenious and proactive is to do some things first. So first, figure out what your interruptions are going to be. No, I mean, verbalize them, write them in your idea book. These are my interruptions, and then list them. So it can be your kids. You have kids all day and they need attention, and you need to be able to address them. Sometimes it's last minute plans. You have a lot of friends and they want to do last minute plans, or sometimes it's yourself when you are busy doing social media and you interrupt yourself from your work. So you need to figure out what those interruptions are. And then you need to take steps to be able to address those things. So to figure out, okay, if it's my kids keep interrupting me because they see I'm doing something and it's just like this magnet. Mom's quiet and busy doing something. I've got to go see what she's doing and I've got to be a part of it. If that's, find things that deal with their age and attention span. I have set up, Joseph has his own, at home he had his own little space. It had all his crayons and markers, and I would say, this is work time. And so he would feel important because he was doing work too. And that's carried over here where, I set up the dresser over here, and he makes comic books. That's his work. And so he makes comic books, and he says, when I'm working, it's his work time. And then we talk about his work, and he has a little shop, so he puts them up for sale. And so that is a way that it has helped me to be able to stop some of the little interruptions, because he sees that I'm busy and wants to be a part of things. Sometimes it's just give them a ton of attention, and then after a while, some kids are fine with that, and then you can move on to what you want to do. So you find out what works for you. And some of these tips are going to be a little bit scattered. If you have last minute friends, friends who do last minute things, or even family who say, hey, let's go do this. Go back to video 13. It's having 2 or 3 yeses before you do something. Learn how to say no. That video is the 12, I think, something like that, or 14. Review those videos to help you learn how to say yes and no to things, about how to judge that. If it's yourself and it's social media, or you just, have a hard time getting going, what is it that will help remove the social media from you so that you can not be distracted by that? And what would excite you to get going on creating? So that's the first thing. The second thing is to figure out what to do for your specific interruptions. Because our lives are all so different that we could have totally different interruptions. Maybe somebody's caring for an older parent or something like that. Find what your interruptions are. You know what they are. If you sat down and thought about it, you could figure them out. So figure them out, then write down how you can address those. So then Some of the things that I remember doing is that I would talk on the phone a lot to my friend. I loved talking to her, Margaret. And what I found was that I wasn't doing anything creative while I was talking to her, but I would clean. I would clean, do the dishes, because you can talk and you can clean all sorts of things. And we would talk a long time. So it was a great time to be able to take care of other housework, other stuff. So then when I was done talking, it was like all of a sudden, ta-da, and the work is done, my housework's done, I can go do something else. So I knew that it was, talking on the phone was an interruption, but it was an interruption I wanted. So I learned how to do two things at once, to address, to take some mindless work that then freed me up after the fact. Then know what kind of projects are you working on? What kind of things do you have? So that when you have 5 minutes or you have a half an hour, what can you do in those time frames? So different things I've done is I've had certain projects that I've kept in a bag. So if I'm going somewhere, all this stuff is in a bag, like embroidery. I was doing a lot of embroidery last year and I would have all of it in a bag. And then when I went someplace, I could just grab the bag and then I could do stuff when I'm out. So having something all contained, one of my projects all contained, was helpful. Another thing was have different types of projects. So some of my projects that I have, and I have to write them down because I'm like, I have a lot of things going on in my brain sometimes, and when I want to know something, it's just like it escapes me at the moment. So I've written down different things, projects. So if my kids are calling me, and we have a big time difference, and we talk a long time when I'm talking to my kids, and I love it. I love talking to them, but it is a long time. We can talk 30 minutes, an hour, and then another child can call and I can spend that same kind of time with them. So I've had to learn, okay, what projects can I do while I'm talking to them that I'm not too distracted from them and still doing something else. And so I have a certain projects that I'm doing that I know, okay, this is my phone talking project where it's really pretty mindless. I can do that. I can draw something. Usually it's a drawing thing that I already know what I'm going to draw and it's already laid out. It's just putting in the time. And so that's something I do. And so you have to know what projects fill up certain chunks of time. For me, I've had a lot of time since moving to Sweden. I told you before, waiting for trains, being on a train, walking to trains. I walk a mile and a half. We walk a mile and a half to school. We have the last, 2 months. And then I walk home by myself, so podcasts, it's a creative thing that just feeds me and I can hear from other people and their thoughts and ideas. And so podcast and then reading, Kindle has been huge. So even though it's not a project per se, it's a creative, a feeder, something that will feed me creatively. So I've kind of looked over time at what the distractions are, the interruptions are, and it's not like I want to get rid of my kids. It's not like I want to get rid of some things. Some things, sure, yeah, I can rearrange and do different, but a lot of it, I would already get rid of it. And it's like you have to think differently than what the norm is out there for creativity. And you have to realize that the way you are making these decisions and incorporating this creative life, you are being an example for you're setting the pattern for your family to see how do you live a creative life besides shutting yourself off from the family or going to someplace else to be creative. You're showing your kids how to be creative. I remember reading, I think it was Cassandra Barney. She's an artist, and I read this a long time ago. She said something about her kids, and she went to some people's house, a friend's house, and her children wanted to know where the studio was because they just assumed everybody had a studio. A studio to them was kind of like a kitchen. It was just part the family, part of your home. And I thought that was interesting because she had patterned her life around being creative, and her kids just, took that on and saw that and assumed that that was the way things were, and it made an impression on them when they realized that it wasn't that way for other people. So there are so many benefits to creativity that you want to pass that on. You want to pass that kind of a lifestyle on to your kids. Let me see. On my notes, I just started writing. So the writing got smaller and smaller and more packed into my page. And so I want to make sure. I think, while I'm looking at this, share your ideas on how you stop and start, and how you keep returning, keep doing the work and returning. And one of the quotes here is, dealing with interruptions can create a positive momentum to your work. And I think that's the case because it starts to be a habit, and you start to see, I can fit this in. Even though I have kids that are demanding this, or a work, or my husband, or my job, or any of these things, I can still find a way to be creative because I can think about what the interruptions are going to be and then address them. And so then you start to see, oh, I've done this and I've done this, and oh yeah, I'm doing things. I am making things happen. And by the way, I'm going to do just a tangent here. I've read some of your things, how you guys are doing things, and how you're starting, to really, not that you weren't creative before, but you're starting to make some extra efforts. My son Wade sent me a picture of his idea book, because my kids, I haven't really talked to them about doing certain things, but they're all creative. And I did talk to Wade about it the other day, about, he should really get an idea book because he's a graphic designer and he's doing certain things now, and he has to have more ideas on demand for himself. And so I said, you should get an idea book. So he sent me a page, and I read through it, and it was just cute, and it was fun, and we just have a good time sharing those kinds of things. Okay, tangent over. Then back to this last, let me see. Here's a quote. There's two more quotes. Protect creative work from day-to-day interruptions that feel urgent but actually aren't, and can easily wait until you're ready to deal with them. That was another tip, to be able to see what really is important and what really isn't. And sometimes it is important to do the laundry. Sometimes I have to okay, this is important today. But a lot of times I go, it's not so important today. It's not urgent. I can do this. It'll still be okay. It wasn't the case when we had 10 people at home. Laundry had to be done every day, a couple loads every day. Then the last quote. Oh, no, two more quotes. Because I wanted to say, this is from Creative Flow, and then I'm going to skip over that one. This is Marcus Aurelius, Emperor, from 150 AD-ish. And he said, whenever your situations forces trouble upon you, return quickly to yourself and interrupt the rhythm of life no longer. Interrupt the rhythm of life no longer than you are compelled. Your grasp of the harmony will grow sure by continual reoccurrence. So from that, I just got, things come up, but keep returning to yourself quickly. Return quickly to yourself. Get back to who you are and what you want to do and the work you want to do, and interrupt the rhythm of life no longer. Don't, that you are compelled. So don't let those interruptions that are compelling you keep interrupting you. And your grasp of the harmony will grow sure by continual recurrence. So if you keep doing this, you're going to become more sure and more confident in the fact that you can insert some of these things that you've thought about, and that you can still be creative when you have a full life, a mom life of interruptions. So the tip is to be adaptable to the interruptions, and use those tips to kind of see what it is that's pulling you away, and see if you can do something about that. And then share some of those tips, because I shared a lot of stories about what I did, but there are all kinds of ways to help help yourself. And if other people share, if you share other ideas, that'll help all of us to be able to figure it out. Because our life circumstances change. So that is all that I think I have today. And thanks for watching. And like the video, send it off to somebody if you think that it's something you two can talk about. Remember, you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it. And I will be back tomorrow.